I swear to God, I just said this as a meme the other night when I was trying to get people to come in and talk a little bit spicier on the Rumble side, but NBC News calls out unfounded conspiracy theories involving the bridge and the Bridgegate and, yes, whether or not boat fuel can melt steel beams. And I shit you not, I've seen that today, but we're going to talk about some updates, not very many, on the boat scandal, what happened there, and what is going on with that going into the future. In other news, Elizabeth Cheney threatens the Supreme Court, telling them that they had better not use their immunity hearing to delay the Trump hearing. So we'll go over some of that, what's happening there, and what we do with that. RFK Jr. picks somebody from the furthest of the far left to be his running mate, so we'll go over what's happening there, what we go on with that. Plus, we're going to catch up with everything that we missed the other day, including the Bobulinski hearing, the new budget that came out just a couple days ago, and the attack on Moscow. So, strap yourselves in, grab a friend, tell 10 people about the stream, get some of them in here, and a duck walked up to a lemonade stand. And he said to that man running the stand, "Hey, you got any grapes? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary." Good evening and welcome to a special bonus episode of Contemporary tonight on this Thursday night. And we are going to get through everything tonight because, well, I didn't realize when I was making the schedule and saying, hey, we've got so much news here that we're going to go into Saturday probably as well, that Sunday is Easter and I like you guys. I want to bring you the news and I love sitting in this chair reading the news to you guys. I have a blast with it. I wish more people would come in, and I wish that we would grow the channel a little bit more, but I am telling you right off the bat, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the week, and I wish that I had the schedule where we could go back and do this again daily, but Saturday is coming up, and Sunday is Easter, and family comes first, and I'm going to be spending that day with my family. I got to work in the morning, but which means Fallout Friday is going to be cut a little bit short, but yeah, I'm spending that with family. I don't care how bad the news is and how much our government wants to divide us and wants me to complain about what they're doing and everything else off of this. Family comes first, so we're not going to be here on Saturday. Excuse me. If I get a little bit scratchy throat today, I will for full accountability. I got a little bit stressed this week, and some of it was compounding on some things that were happening in the past few weeks, and I broke down on Tuesday, and I bought a pack of cigarettes while I was at work. I've smoked 2 out of them, and I already don't want to smoke anymore. 3. I've smoked 3. And I don't want to smoke anymore, because that's the thing. Like, when I smoke, it's just, I get that urge to do it once, maybe twice, and it's like, shit, why the fuck did I do this? So, it's a little bit scratchy in my throat again. Apologize for what you will hear coming off of that. I am probably not going to finish off that pack, even though it was very, very expensive. That's part of the reason that I'm glad that I don't smoke regularly anymore, except maybe when the urge gets to me and I get too stressed out every maybe 6 months or so. It's because that was $10 for a pack. Holy crap. I mean, I thought it was outrageous when they hit 7. That's when I started looking at quitting, when they hit 7. But I did, and I can feel it in my voice. I can hear it for that. But we've got news to go over here, and we've got plenty of it tonight. I have got a list of things that have come up over the past couple days, over the past 48 hours, that we need to go over first, and we're going to try to fly through that, because I do want to get to, at the very least, the Moscow attack and the Bobolinsky thing. If we don't talk about Candace Owens, I might be okay with that. But Ronna McDaniel, that one I want to do, because it's fucking hilarious. Oh crap, is that funny. Fired within 24 hours of being officially hired at NBC because, well, the other on-air talent threw a hissy fit and a crybaby fit. And I've got video of the on-air talent throwing a hissy fit and a crybaby fit. And we're going to have fun with that. But again, yeah, the Candace stuff, I might just accidentally run out of time for. We'll see what happens with that. But let's get down into the news. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out The Daily Ignoramus over on Stephen Ignoramus' channel, and Overruled with KTZed, which will be on a special night because, hey, we're not going to be here on Saturday, but KTZed will. Because she's not going to stream on Sunday, on Easter Sunday, which good for her. She should be spending that day with family too. So do go and check out KTZed on Saturday in lieu of Contemporary, which will not be here because I will be in transit at that time, going to spend the time with the family. Go check both of those great bits of programming out. I promise you will not regret it. Let's check in with a live chat. The more you chat, of course, the more we get moved up into the rankings. So do feel free to tell me how you feel in here. Dual Helix was having a lot of fun last Tuesday night, and I appreciate that. And I could see it too, by the way, in the reach that we were getting that night. That was great. So thank you for that, of course, always. The biggest thing you can do. I know a lot of creators say the biggest thing that you can do is share out the show to go and help them out. No, the biggest thing you can do, especially if they're going live, is chat in their live chat, because that will get them their viewership that night while they are live. Sharing out after the fact does help them, and do that as well, but always, always, always tell them how you feel. Like the Mogwai, who had another interesting lyric that does not involve ducks or grapes. The Mogwai saying, "It's 6 o'clock on a Thursday," and the typical crowd shuffles in. "There's a pervert Graham sitting next to me, making love to some dildo again." The Mogwai, I swear, has a love-hate relationship with Lindsey Graham, and he does live in South Carolina, so that is his senator, too. Which I find all the more hilarious, by the way. Spend that type of day. I do have an issue with the boat losing power. I've got a sped-up video of that we've got up on here. And again, I'm not going to say whether or not there was conspiracy or terrorism or anything else like that, because I don't have enough facts to say that. But I have enough inconsistencies to ask questions. Which seems to be the biggest crime of all, is if you ask questions or not. But let's get right into it. Let's get into the news. Let's get started. We're going to start with some political sad news. Former Senator Joseph Lieberman dies at 82 years old. From Jake Tapper, Stephen Collinson, and Jack Forrest. Joe Lieberman, the first Jewish vice president nominee of a major party whose conscious and independent streak later led him on a journey away from his home in the Democrat Party, has died at 82, according to a statement from his family. The former Connecticut senator passed away on Wednesday due to complications from a fall in New York. His wife Hadessa and members of his family were by his side. The peak of Lieberman's career was when he was chosen by Democratic presidential nominee Al Gore in 2000 to be his running mate. The disputed election was eventually decided by a Supreme Court in favor of then Texas Governor George W. Bush. Lieberman had hailed his selection as a historic breakthrough for Jewish Americans. Oh man, am I kind of glad that Midget B is not here. Because I'm telling you right off the bat, we would be getting some very colorful language in the chat that, and I know he goes over on the YouTube side. He doesn't go on the Rumble side, where the colorful chat I prefer to be. On many issues like abortion and economic policy, Lieberman was a mainstream Democrat and he will be remembered as one of the last major statesmen of an era when true bipartisanship felt possible in Washington. I'm going to touch on that in just a second, on the rant that goes with this, before today's polarized times. In his farewell speech to the Senate in 2012, Lieberman bemoaned what politics had become. It is the partisan polarization of our politics which prevents us from making the principled compromises on which progress in a democracy depends, and right now, which prevents us from restoring our fiscal solvency as a nation. Lieberman said, "We need bipartisan leadership to break the gridlock in Washington that will unleash all potential that is in the American people," which is interesting for him to say, by the way, in an election year where Obama was the president and also leading for the presidential pick for 2012 to start in 2013. Lieberman's political evolution accelerated in the aftermath of September 11th. His hawkish instincts on foreign policy put him increasingly at odds with his own party, which is now huge into foreign policy and foreign intervention. He was a strong supporter of the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, which led to a prolonged conflict that many of his fellow Democrats came to oppose, which is, by the way, the reason that I say that whether or not the Supreme Court would have decided for Bush or Gore in 2000 wouldn't have made a goddamn bit of difference. He mounted his own campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2004, but the run failed to take off, further increasing the distance from the party's core base after he refused to repudiate the war in Iraq. Man, if those Democrats could see their party now. Wait, most of them can, because most of them are my age. That position also led him to losing the Democratic primary for his own seat in 2006, but he ran as an independent anyway and won the election, returning to the Senate. In 2008, Lieberman infuriated Democrats even more by showing up at the Republican National Convention in support of his dear friend John McCain, that year's Republican presidential nominee. Many Democrats perceived it as an act of treachery when he criticized then-Senator Barack Obama, the Democratic nominee, as a gifted and eloquent young man, but warned that he was too inexperienced to be president. No, that wasn't... Well, that was Lieberman's problem with it, but that was not the problem with Barack Obama. That was 100% not the problem with Barack Obama. Who did, by the way, lead the charge on the polarization that we see today? I know a lot of people say that it was all Trumpism. No, the polarization came with Obama, but that's what birthed the MAGA movement. Was a backlash to Obama and the fact that he was turning his back on the Union Democrats that got him elected. And had it not been, had Hillary, I can't believe I'm about to say this, God forbid, won in 2008, we may still be at a position where you look at the Democrat and the Republican and you can't tell the difference between them because, I mean, you take their voices away and just read their scripts line for line, they're saying the exact same thing. And Lieberman embodies that too, by the way. I mean, there's a point where I prefer the division as much as I rail against it at the time, because we're not sitting here with government officials from both parties going back and making big backroom deals that affect the American people and get absolutely no coverage. That is one part of the gridlock that I like, and that is the fact that we actually get to see what it is they're trying to vote on and read the bills. I don't think that we would have been able to read the bills if Lieberman had succeeded. Gore had succeeded. I don't think Barack would have had his rise to power. I'm pretty sure the Democrat Party would have been kicked out and W would have been in 2004. I think the Iraq War would have been pushed back at some point. And I do think W would have pushed that back off. But I think we'd be in a very, very different place. And I don't know how good of a place that would be, honestly. So that is what we see for that. Mogwai says, I didn't like John Lieberman, but I don't want anybody to kick off. Well, he lived a long life. I will come back and say that. He lived a very long life. It's kind of a shame that it had to come out so sudden because of a fall, but I mean, you don't get to choose how you kick off either, so. And with that, let's go into the bridge. Starting with Axios today, what you know about the ripple effect of the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Yes, by the way, this is going to have supply chain issues and constraints, and this is going to affect our inflation. From Ivana Sarik. The stunning collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge on Tuesday will have economic impacts far beyond the city of Baltimore. The Port of Baltimore, one of the busiest in the U.S., has halted vessel traffic indefinitely in the wake of the bridge's collapse. And it's going to be a good year to a year and a half before that's open, no matter what happens this November. It's going to be between 12 and 24 months. I anticipate it's going to be about 18. Bush Gore was my first presidential election. I'm that fucking old. You are just a touch older than me because I was 16 when that happened. I would not turn 18 until the following, 02 obviously. Who was Bush Kerry? That was my first one. The Port of Baltimore, which is one of the busiest in the U.S., has halted vessel traffic. We know that one. Maryland Governor Wes Moore declared a state of emergency after a cargo ship, which he said had issued a Mayday call, struck the bridge early Tuesday. Search teams recovered the bodies of 2 of the 6 missing construction workers on Wednesday. All were presumed dead. The decades-old bridge offered a key transport, helping link I'm going to talk like Biden already, man. Come on. Dual Helix has joined us over on the Rumble side. I gave you a shout out earlier. The decades-old bridge offered a key transport, helping link Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York. It's too early to determine how long the port will be closed, Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul J. Wedefield told reporters on Tuesday. The Port of Baltimore is a top handler of the U.S. imports and exports of cars and light trucks. According to a statement from Moore's office last month, his office called it one of the largest economic generators in the state. It ranks 9th among U.S. harbors for both tonnage and dollar value of foreign cargo passing through. The collapse of the Key Bridge is a global crisis, Moore said at a Wednesday briefing. The national economy and the world's economy depends on the Port of Baltimore, he added. The port handles more cars and more farm equipment than any other port in the country. In 2023, the port handled a record 52.3 million tons of international cargo worth about $80.8 billion, according to the state's archives. The port supports more than 15,000 direct jobs, more than 139,000 indirect jobs, which, by the way, is going to hit the Baltimore economy in a hard way, generating almost $3.3 billion in total personal income. Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson announced Wednesday that he would be introducing an emergency bill to pay workers impacted by the bridge collapse. The economic stability and loss to thousands impacted in the days ahead cannot be understated, he wrote on X. Now, I've already brought up ways that this can be temporarily band-aided while they get this cleared out and get this up and going. And I don't think the port is going to be closed for 2 years. I just think that's how long it's going to take for that bridge to go back up. But once they get the debris out of the port, they can start. I mean, if they get the investigation done, I would give the port, unfortunately, a good 6 to 8 months, which would bring us into just about election season, before that is out and open. And these are people who are going to be disaffected by what happened here, and they're going to take that into November. Do keep that in mind. But before ships start being allowed to come back in and out of here, once they've been satisfied with the investigation, the forensics and everything else that goes along with that, and they know that they're probably not going to find the bodies that they haven't found by that point, that's going to be about the time that the port opens. The bridge, I still say, is going to be 12 to 18. Possibly to 24. That, by the way, Dual Helix brought up a good point. We don't have the steel manufacturing capacity to rebuild that. Currently, we don't. But that would be a good campaign promise for both parties to run on, is increasing the steel output of this country, bring jobs back to Pittsburgh in order to get that bridge going. That would be a good way. That would be a great thing to run on. Not that I think that Trump is going to run on that. I think he's going to continue running on, I totally won in 2020. That's a quote. YouTube, don't ban me. I totally won in 2020. It's all about 2020. We're not going to talk about anything in the future. So, we will see what happens with that. Catching back up with the chat. Why does it take a bridge falling into the river for the government to care about bridges? Well, it's because Mayor Pete, our transportation secretary, was too busy focusing on trains before the bridge fell down. Dual Helix says, free money checks, that's going to be abused. Yeah, well, unfortunately, government programs often are. NBC News, and the discussion on this when this popped up in my Discord was that NBC News was stoking racial flames. But the fact that most of the people on the bridge were also Latin workers, and so many people on the left wing of our politics want to associate all Latin people with the people who are crossing the border right now. This one came up to us from NBC News. Baltimore Bridge collapse calls attention to the growing Latino labor force and the risks they face. From Nicole Acevedo. Most of the workers killed or presumed dead following the Baltimore Bridge collapse are originally from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Mexico, illustrating the dangers Hispanic workers face as they continue to be overrepresented in the construction industry. 8 construction workers were fixing potholes on the Francis Scott Key Bridges roadway early Tuesday when an immense cargo ship experiencing technical issues after it lost power accidentally crashed into the bridge, causing it to collapse into the Patapsco River. 2 workers who survived were rescued from the water, and search efforts for the remaining 6 were underway all day Wednesday. The hope we have is to be able to see the body, said Fred Suazo, the brother of Maynard Suazo, one of the missing construction workers presumed dead. He told NBC News, "We want to see him, find him, know whether he's dead, because we don't know anything." I hate to tell you this, Freddie. He is 9 times out of 10 deceased right now. There is a chance, but it's very, very slim. My brother's the engine of the family. He was everything to us. He was the best, Suazo's sister Norma cheerfully told Noticias Telemundo about her missing brother. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration at the U.S. Department of Labor considers construction as a high-hazard industry in which workers are exposed to serious risks such as falling from rooftops, being struck by heavy construction equipment, and being hurt or killed by unguarded machinery. Latinos are more exposed to the danger since they make up about a third of the nation's construction workforce. That's a little bit misleading because a third is still the minority of the workforce. Two-thirds of the workforce is not Latino, according to the statistic you just put down. But I know they want to run the woe is me and start a race war to alleviate the class war. And I know that, yes, with what we have coming across the border, a lot of these people have questionable documents and identity and can possibly be paid under the table for less than minimum wage. Do keep that in mind. At least less than industry standards. So there's going to be some issues with that as well. That's what we see for that. Let's grab one from our friends over at the Daily Wire. Maryland lawmakers drafting emergency bill in response to Baltimore bridge collapse. From Daniel Chayton. Lawmakers in Maryland are preparing an emergency bill to provide income replacement for workers affected by the partial bridge collapse in Baltimore early Tuesday. A little bit more focus on the unemployment benefits that these people are going to wind up getting. And there are a lot. On X, Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson said he's working with State Delegate Luke Clippinger, a fellow Democrat hailing from Baltimore County, and others from the area to draft the legislation. Over 15,000 in the Baltimore region rely on daily operations at Port of Baltimore to put food on the table, Ferguson said today. With Clippinger and colleagues representing Port, we are drafting an emergency bill to provide for income replacement for workers impacted by this travesty. The incident involved a container ship named Dolly, we know that one, 6 people, presumed dead. The bridge in shambles, the Port of Baltimore has been closed until further notice, leading experts to tell Business Insider that the closures may obstruct $15 million in daily economic activity. The human cost of lives lost yesterday is overwhelming and tragic. The economic stability lost to the thousands impacted in the days ahead cannot be understated, Ferguson said. Which, I mean, again, this is all well and good. This is the kind of emergency that unemployment benefits are put there for, and the employers are paying into that as a sort of insurance for instances where they have to shut down their port. However, the Unemployment Insurance Board is government-backed, and there is not enough money in it for an entire sector of an already overstretched city to absorb all at once. And unfortunately, this is going to become a federal government program by the end of it. How they do that and what aid comes up for that, we will have to see, and we'll have to wait and see. But yes, they are going to be... Again, technically this is what the program is meant for, but I don't know how it stays above water. Let's talk about the conspiracy theory! So, an interesting video, which you can already see going much faster. This is sped up 8 times. The video that we saw on Tuesday of the crash. And it kind of puts some of this into perspective when you can see it all happen at once. Now, again, I am not going to come out and say that this was terrorism, or the government trying to snarl up the supply chain, or get more people dependent, or anything else like that. I'm not going to say any of that, because I don't have the evidence to come back out and say any of this, but I have enough evidence to say that I don't think the narrative that we're getting right now is necessarily the whole truth either at this point. I have a lot of questions. Who was it that used to make fun of me over the fact that I always had questions? Somebody did in the chat. But yeah, when you see it all happening at once, this does raise some questions to me, especially with the kickback around. Again, I'm not going to say that this was terrorism, sabotage, or anything else. I know Tim Pool is coming out saying that the power cut was a cyber attack. Marjorie Taylor Greene is coming out and saying this is definitely 100% a terrorist attack, and getting mocked for asking the questions. Although with Greene, I don't necessarily think that she's out just asking questions. I think that she's already making allegations. I have questions that need to be answered about this, and I'm going to be told, I'll tell you right off the bat, if I went to X and asked these questions, I would be called a conspiracy theory, far right. Must be a Trumper, must be anti-vax, those kind of things. I want to know, though. I want to get to the bottom of this, and I don't think that we ever will. With the 8 times speed, I could see it both ways, honestly. I could still see it as an accident, but I can see where people would look at this and say, hey, this might have been deliberate. But of course, that doesn't stop NPC News from putting their 2 cents into this. I know, I put on X, and I'm actually half expecting to hear some pushback for that. I know I made it a meme at the beginning, but can boat fuel melt steel beams? NPC News. Unfounded conspiracy theories spread online after Baltimore Bridge collapse. From Callahan Rosenblatt. Outlandish conspiracy theories circulated on X after a container ship collided with a major bridge in Maryland, causing it to collapse early Tuesday morning. The ship hit a supporting structure of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which is located southeast of Baltimore's metropolitan area. Maryland Governor Wes Moore declared a state of emergency and said the calamity that knocked down the bridge was most likely the result of an accident and not an act of terrorism. Moore told the reporters that crew members of the Dolly container ship, which struck the Key Bridge on Tuesday, had notified authorities that they lost power. As rescuers searched for survivors, some online conspiracy theorists have attempted to uncover a non-existent plot to explain the collision. Major news events like the pandemic, natural disasters, and mass shootings now consistently serve as fodder for fringe figures, many of them on the far right, to amplify their worldviews that often feature shadowy cabals of major unseen threats. Look, I'm not saying every mass shooting out there was orchestrated by the government. I've lived close to Chicago for 10 years. I know better than that. But the ones that get televised always have a white or white passing shooter, the evil, scary AR-15, and involve a youth who happened to be in the same Discord server as several of the other youths who did mass shootings with a former FBI agent. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory. I'm saying I have questions. Once relegated to certain corners of the internet, these figures have flourished on X since Elon Musk acquired the platform. Dude, fuck off. They have flourished on X since X was still Twitter. Holy shit. No, this is long, long before Elon took over and removed many of the rules that once tried to limit the spread of false claims. Musk has garnered backlash in the past for amplifying conspiracy theories and restoring accounts for known conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones. A spokesperson for X did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Some on Tuesday claimed the shipping vessel came under cyber attacks. That was Tim Pool. That was the Beanie Boy. Or that Pinko Pox era lockdowns were to blame. That would be a stretch to me, I think. There have been no reports suggesting that any of these conspiracies are remotely true. In response to some of the posts, X had a reader's added context note disclaimer in which people fact-check the posters. But it's not just so-called keyboard warriors who are responding to the theories. Several conspiracies were elevated by public officials on TV and by those with massive followings on social media. On Fox Business, Maria Bartiromo falsely suggested the wide-open border could have something to do with the collision. Given the fact that it was a Singapore flag, that one I don't buy. A clip of which circulated on X, no link to immigration has been made by officials. It's possible, but I think that one is a stretch. A spokesperson for Fox did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Andrew Tate, whom I still have no idea who he is, shared a conspiracy that falsely suggested the ship had been cyber-attacked, citing that in the video of the collision, the ship's lights appeared to turn off just before impact. Well, it's just like getting fat. It retracts before impact. In video leading up to and of the incident, around 1:24 a.m. Eastern Time, the ship's lights turn off for a minute, but then flicker back on about 10 seconds later. Smoke is seen coming from the ship's chimney at 1:26. The ship appears to turn and moments later loses its lights. Again, they come back a half a minute later. A spokesperson for Tate did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Well, that's going to be much more than immediate. You are not going to get a comment from Tate. I can tell you that right now. Just by these 3 letters right here, you're not going to get a comment back from a spokesperson for Tate. Because Tate himself is too busy telling people to enslave women. And the spokespeople think that anybody who is linked with NBC is... Well, I probably can't say that on YouTube, can I? Let's keep going. Vong says apparently the ship had known mechanical issues that the company willfully neglected to repair. I heard the propulsion was lost on one side, which would explain the sharp turn as far as how the loss of a single pylon caused the collapse of an entire bridge. Dude, did you see that bridge? That thing looked like the bridges we made out of marshmallows and toothpicks in middle school. But I see your point as an engineer. Well, let's put it this way. As an engineer, I can assure you that both the average level of skill and the average level of ethics enforcement have fallen quite a long way from their high point. Which was, of course, during the Roman Empire. Thank you for that, Vaughn. Conspiracy! CNBC weighing in. Here's what we know about the Singapore-flagged container ship that hit the Baltimore Bridge from Sam Meredith. Six workers were presumed dead on Wednesday. The incident has wreaked havoc on one of the country's busiest ports. And fears of supply chain disruption have raised questions about the Singapore-flagged container ship. Known as the Dolly, the nearly 1,000-foot-long vessel was headed out of Baltimore, headed for Sri Lanka, when it hit a support pylon of the bridge around 1:30 a.m. Eastern. It was traveling about 9 miles an hour before the collision. According to LSEG shipping data, video of the disaster appears to show the 1.6-mile structure crumpling into the icy water almost immediately after it was struck. What do we know about the Dolly? It was previously involved in a minor incident at Belgium's port of Antwerp, the second largest port of Europe. The ship suffered sufficient damages in July 2016 when it struck the stone wall of the quay during an unmooring maneuver, according to the shipping trafficking website Vessel Finder. The accident, which did not cause any injuries, occurred during good weather and was caused by a mistake of the master and pilot on board. The Dolly remained afloat after the incident and was subsequently repaired. Separately, an inspection of the Dolly at San Antonio, Chile, in June last year found propulsion and auxiliary machinery deficiencies, NBC News reported, citing data from the website Equasis, which provides information on ships. However, Singapore's Port Authority on Wednesday said the container ship had passed overseas inspections and carried certificates to cover its structural integrity and functionality at the time of the Baltimore Bridge incident. The Dolly underwent and passed 2 separate foreign port state inspections in June and September last year, the authority said. In June inspection, the container ship was found to have a faulty monitor gauge for fuel pressure, but this was fixed before the vessel departed the port. Nor do I think that would have actually shut everything down. But it does sound like this particular ship had a problem with running into things. Or maybe it was a problem of things running into it. As a certain Buick from my young adulthood happened to do. You know who you are, by the way. If you hear this on the after. Well, I don't know. Again, I have questions. This I'm not going to take at full face value. This might be a horrible accident. This might be some negligence on inspection. This might be an incompetent crew. Or this might be terrorism or conspiracy. I don't have enough information in front of me to make a call on this. And I could see it in multiple ways. It's very convenient timing, I will admit that. but we will have to wait until more information comes out. But whatever you do, do not do your own research, because that would be evil of you. That would be called Facebook research, and you would be a conspiracy theorist. And yes, that is one of the things that's getting floated around online when they talk about whether or not you believe the mainstream narrative or not. Let's talk about Utah. Gonzaga got in the news this week. Utah coach says team was shaken after experiencing a racist hate during an NCAA tournament. From Tim Booth at the Associated Press. Members of the Utah women's basketball team were subjected to racism near their hotel in Idaho last week when a pickup truck with a Confederate flag drove near them and the driver began using offensive language, including the N-word, authorities said on Tuesday. Midget, where were you? On Tuesday. The team was left shaken and wound up moving to a different hotel the next day. Utah coach Lynn Roberts said her team experienced a series of hate crimes. Looks like Luke Brantner has joined me over on the Instagram side. Reminder to Instagram viewers, the link in my bio will take you to the YouTube channel, which will have the live stream and you can see what's on the screen in front of me. I can't transmit that to the Instagram side. But you're welcome to join me on the YouTube or the Twitch side, twitch.tv/jedgar101. Utah coach Lynn Roberts said her team experienced a series of hate crimes after arriving at the first NCAA tournament in Coeur d'Alene. The only reason I know how to pronounce that is because of Beauty and the Beta and Blonde in the Belly of the Beast, by the way. She revealed what happened after Utah lost to Gonzaga in the second round of the tournament on Monday, and authorities confirmed some of the details the following day. I wonder where Blonde in the Belly of the Beast was when that was going on. Roberts said the incidents happened last Thursday night after the team arrived and they were disturbing to the traveling party to the point where there were concerns about safety. Utah and the other teams played their games in Spokane, but the Utes were staying about 30 miles away from Coeur d'Alene before they were relocated to a different hotel on Friday. We had several instances of some kind of racial hate crimes towards our program, and it was incredibly upsetting for all of us, Roberts said, in our world. In athletics and in university settings, it's shocking. There's so much diversity on a college campus, and you're just not exposed to that very often. I have some friends who would have something to say about the diversity on a college campus. Again, things I can't say on YouTube. Tony Stewart, an official with the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations, said at a news conference the Utes were walking from the hotel to a restaurant when the truck drove up and the driver began using racist language. After the team left the restaurant, the same driver returned, reinforced by others, Stewart said, and they revved their engines and again yelled at the players. So, could this have happened? Probably. Especially in Coeur d'Alene. Do I think that this was actual white supremacists and like Nick Fuentes was waiting in the background for this? No, I don't. I've got this feeling that this was a bunch of 16-year-old kids who just learned what that word meant for the first time and were driving around screaming at whoever they could. I think this was teenage edgelords before anything else. Utah said it filed a police report the night of the incident seized. Coeur d'Alene Police Chief Lee White said Tuesday about 100 people were around the area that night, but investigators need to interview those affected. He said that there are 2 state charges that could be enforced: malicious harassment and disorderly conduct if someone is arrested. White also said he was working with the FBI. So, no video, no other evidence, of course. There's no reason for this to be a national news story, and yet here we are. Axios Salt Lake City joining in on this one. Right-wing disruption shut down Idaho's apology for racism targeting Utah during an NCAA tournament. At least this one somebody got named. I buy this one a little bit more. It's a name that I've never heard before, but this one at least has somebody named. We've got something we can follow up with. Officials in Idaho tried to apologize Tuesday for the racism in the University of Utah women's basketball team faced in Coeur d'Alene before an NCAA tournament game at Gonzaga. Yes, but they abruptly shut down the news conference when a far-right operative began shouting questions at the human rights advocate. No mention on what the questions are, by the way. Just who it was and the fact that, it was far-right. We know what's happening with that. A reporter from the conservative Idaho Dispatch asked whether the investigation would violate the harasser's free speech rights. Another man later began shouting that he was a journalist but refused to name his outlet, and officials shut down the press event amid the argument. Spokesman Review reporter Alex Duggan identified the agitator as Dave Riley, a far-right activist and consultant with the powerful Idaho Freedom Foundation. Riley responded that he just wanted to ask a question. His question was inaudible amid booing and shouting. I don't know. Again, this one I buy a little bit more, but I don't believe this as presented. Especially with Axios being as far left of an outlet as it is. And it gets worse. Okay, if this one is true, this guy is a moron. GOP Michigan State Rep mistakenly claims Gonzaga team buses are for illegal invaders. From Nick Robertson. A Republican state legislator on Michigan railed against buses of illegal invaders landing at his local airport on Wednesday. But he garnered criticism after it was discovered the buses carried a college basketball team. Rep. Matt Maddock said the Gonzaga University basketball team, which was in Detroit for the March Madness Sweet 16 matchup on Friday, was a group of illegal immigrants. Dude. Dude. Happening right now. 3 buses just loaded up with illegal invaders at Detroit Metro. Anyone have any idea where they're headed with their police escort? Maddock wrote on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Maddock included photos of a Legion Air plane and a fleet of team buses which appeared identical to the aircraft and buses shown in Gonzaga. Basketball posts about the team landing in Detroit about the same time Maddock made in his comments. The post circulated quickly with dozens of users pointing out the mistake and making fun of Maddock. Eric Swalwell, who actually has a leg to stand on for once in his miserable existence, commented on the post calling Maddock out for his assumptions. How bad do you have to fuck up that Eric Swalwell can get one out on you? This is a person who, let's remind you, jeopardized national security by banging a Chinese spy. And had one of the loudest farts on live TV in recorded history. How bad do you have to screw up for that guy to get a leg up on you? It's incredible. Hey Einstein, your state is hosting the Sweet 16. Could it be a team bus? If it is, will you resign your for your spectacular stupidity, Swalwell wrote. I appreciate the sentiment, and yes, there are instances of flights of migrants and getting them bussed around areas, but dude, know your audience and know what's happening in your state at that time. My God. Alright, Liz Cheney's back in the news. From the Hill, Cheney urges court to hold January 6th trial before election. He knows how damaging that will be. From Sarah Fortinsky, former Representative Liz Cheney said it was critical that former President Trump's federal election interference case goes to trial before voters select their next president in November, as she called on the Supreme Court to recognize Trump's appeal as a delay tactic. No, it's the fact that he has a right to appeal. It cannot be the case that the President of the United States can attempt to overturn an election and seize power, and that our justice system is incapable of holding a trial, holding him to account before the next election, Cheney said at a Wednesday event at Drake in Iowa. That cannot be the case. Trump's legal team has sought delays in each of his 4 criminal cases, citing various factors ahead of the 2024 presidential election. His federal election interference case, which some critics see as the most important to resolve before November, is on hold until the Supreme Court rules on Trump's claim that he should be immune from criminal prosecution for all actions taken while in office. The Supreme Court will hear the case on April 25th. Cheney, who served as vice chair of the House committee that investigated Trump's efforts to overturn the laws, Hong Kong, said Trump, despite his claims otherwise, has all the evidence from special counsel investigations that resulted in the federal indictment against him, and he has all the evidence from the January 6th Unselect Committee. Cheney said she suspects Trump knows how damaging the evidence is and therefore is trying to delay the trial. If you look at what Trump is doing now, and if you look at the extensive effort that he has undertaken to prevent the January 6th trial from going forward before this election, the reason he's doing it is because he knows, first of all, he has all the evidence, Cheney said, referring to the evidence from the House committee, the special counsel and grand jury, including transcripts of testimony from members of his admin. And so Trump knows what most senior members of his admin, his vice president, his AG, his acting attorney general, his acting secretary of defense, he knows what all those people said to the grand jury. He knows how damaging that will be to him, Cheney said, in remarks first highlighted by Mediaite. On Trump's presidential immunity claim, Cheney cautioned the Supreme Court to recognize that what he's doing is delaying tactic, and said that allowing it for further delays itself is suppression of evidence. So, I have a problem with this, and it's not... It's not the fact that I don't think that there should or should not be an immunity hearing. But what we're seeing right now is an attempt to poison the decision. Cheney knows the same as I think a lot of us know at this point. There's a good chance, just on partisan reasoning and logic, that this actually goes in Trump's favor. And Cheney is terrified of that, because that means that this trial is gone, and nobody's going to get to hear the evidence that they carefully selected and edited, and had Hollywood professionals come back out and edit, to make this look as bad as possible in the middle of election season. For something that, by the way, he's already been tried and acquitted of once. But because that was a political trial, for whatever reason, double jeopardy doesn't apply to this. What Cheney is doing is making sure that the public looks at this, and if this goes in Trump's favor, that means that the decision is poisoned, and it's Trump's Supreme Court picks acting on his behalf. It's his lackeys doing his bidding, and all the other asinine bullshit that they say about things like this. Public officials have no place trying to influence the opinion of a judicial decision, especially in a situation where that's already going to be half the country doesn't accept it, no matter which way it goes. No matter which way this particular decision goes, half of the country isn't going to accept it. And I can tell you that right off the bat. If he gets immunity for this, the leftoids are going to come back out and riot, and scream, and burn shit down. And if it goes in his against him, the MAGA people and a lot of the other Republicans are going to scream. They might not riot because, well, a a lot of them will come back out and say, "Oh crap, there's feds in the crowd. We can't riot. We can't protest because we might get arrested." And by the way, there would be feds in the crowd. I don't know what the percentage would be, but there would be feds in that crowd, handing out Molotovs and bear spray and sharpened flagpoles and all the rest of it to try to make it look as bad as possible. We've seen that happen more than once. So, but that's Liz Cheney. All right, and the last one that I have on the initial page here before we go into the stuff that we missed is our friend RFK Jr. Amuse on X makes the announcement RFK Jr. has named far-left Democrat donor and activist Nicole Shanahan as his vice president. Nicole provided financial support to both Pete Buttigieg and Biden. She also funded Soros-backed DA George Gascon. The first thing that I want to say is to everybody who called me a crazed conspiracy theorist, who called me a bad Republican, in spite of the fact that I'm not even a fucking Republican, who called me a maggot, who called me a Trumper, and who assured me that RFK Jr. was the new standard bearer for conservatism. You all owe me an apology. I told you this is the direction he was going to go. I told you he was a socialist, and I told you that he was a fucking gun grabber. You all owe me an apology right now. Every goddamn last one of you. I told you. This, by the way, also pretty much ended RFK Jr.'s presidential ambitions. And he was doing somewhat well in this, but the people who are going to go onto this ticket, now that this woman is on there are going to be still a few never-Trumpers who say that his aversion to the medical treatment that we can't mention on YouTube is enough for them to go and say that, oh, he's going to give us COVID accountability. There's still going to be those voters out there, but yeah, his campaign is done. That was it. It was over. Now, I didn't say that you said that, Helix, but there are a lot of people out there that did. There are a lot of people out there who said that I was a conspiracy theorist and a Trumper and this and that and the next thing. Because I saw RFK Jr. for what he was. I've got this knack for seeing these politicians for what they are long before they come out and they do the thing that shows what it is that they really are. Let's grab one. Let's not do the Hill, because we've done the last two from the Hill. Let's grab one from the USA Today. We'll do that one. RFK Jr. picks running mate. What to know about philanthropist? That's a generous term. Nicole Shanahan. From Karen Weintraub and Terry Collins. Lawyer and philanthropist Nicole Shanahan will be Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate in his long-shot bid for the U.S. presidency, the pair announced on Tuesday. Kennedy made the announcement at a campaign event in Oakland, her hometown. About 500 people filled the floor of the Henry J. Kaiser Center for the Arts, and more than 30,000 tuned into the live stream, with many suggesting their favorite vice presidential picks ranging from Tulsi Gabbard, no, to Aaron Rodgers, also no. And I like Aaron Rodgers, but he has no place in politics. He said he liked her for her commitment to health and organic foods and deep inside knowledge of how the technology industry uses AI to manipulate the public and identify government abuses. He also wanted an athlete, he said, describing Shanahan as an avid surfer and a softball player in her youth. He wanted, he said, a gifted administrator, an inquiring mind, someone open to changing her opinions, who is spiritual, idealistic, and above all, someone with a deep love for the United States of America. In some ways, Shanahan was an odd choice, a registered Democrat. She has no political or executive experience, and most of her philanthropic support has gone to mainstream science, while Kennedy, who quit the Democrat Party last fall, has made a national reputation, dismissing the scientific evidence of, probably can't say that on YouTube, and public health experts. In other ways, though, the 38-year-old makes a lot of sense. She already has donated more than $4 million to his campaign, including the lion's share of funding for a 30-second ad during the Super Bowl. Can I find that ad? At least get the audio of it? Is this it?
Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you.
Yeah, she paid for him to use, well, his campaign to use this during the Super Bowl, which he supposedly had no idea about.
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view?
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's got?
I'll admit, that's kind of catchy. I know it's all a bullshit lie, but that's kind of catchy. That's part of the point, though, of it, too. The ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin and longtime Silicon Valley resident, Shanahan has connections throughout the tech world. Kennedy has tried to cultivate support within the tech sector, including making an appearance at the South by Southwest conference in Austin earlier this month. So, yeah, he's done. But she's going to run into this too and try to run headlong into the culture war. From Politico, RFK Jr.'s vice presidential pick calls IVF one of the biggest lies being told about women's health. Alright, get the time machine. We're going back and finding the guy who had the rifle for Harambe and kicking him in the fucking nuts. Get the DeLorean. Hey, wait a second. What the hell happened to my restream chat? Oh, they're gonna make me do a CAPTCHA. I'm gonna have to do a CAPTCHA right on the air. Holy shit. Yep. Hey, let's make sure you're not a robot while you're in the middle of fucking live streaming. Restream, can you do something about that? Select all images with cars. There's one. I can't tell if that overpass has one or not, because it's that bad and fucking grainy. Hey, what does Lieutenant Commander Data do, by the way? When he gets a CAPTCHA on a Starfleet computer? Does anybody know? I know this is off into the weeds and way off topic at this point. I just have a deep disdain for CAPTCHA. And again, I don't necessarily mind doing it, except for the fact that when we're in the middle of doing this right now, and they just kick it out and, hey, you gotta sign in and you gotta verify your identity right in the middle of all this. Alright, anyway, back to the IVF. And I expect there's probably going to be a book from Vong over on the Twitch side again after that. From Brittany Gibson. RFK Jr.'s running mate has been a harsh critic of in vitro fertilization while funding alternative research on extending women's reproductive years. Nicole Shanahan has for years denounced IVF, calling it one of the biggest lies that's being told about women's health today. Okay, this is actually going in a direction I didn't think this was going to go. At the same time, she's also been a vocal proponent and a financial backer for unconventional research into the possibility of helping women having children into their 50s and exploring no-cost interventions to help women conceive, such as exposure to sunlight. I can see why Kennedy picked her up. I don't know if that's going to get flagged on YouTube for medical misinformation or not, by the way. I'm not sure that there's been a really thorough mitochondrial respiration study on the effects of 2 hours of morning sunlight on reproductive health. I would love to fund something like that, Shanahan said in a 2023 panel with the National Academy of Medicine, a group to which she had previously donated $100 million. The statement was met with chuckles. "Yeah, let's do it," she added. "I just have an intuition that could be interesting and maybe work." Oh man, I'm going to get hit for medical misinformation. Holy crap. As a candidate, her criticisms of IVF have taken on heightened importance. Following Alabama Supreme Court's ruling that embryos are children, which briefly forced clinics in the state to pause operations, Republicans and Democrats, including both President Biden and former President Trump, rushed to defend the procedure, which is broadly popular. The 38-year-old's opposition to IVF and skepticism of the fertility industry makes her an outlier in the presidential field, though she has not called for banning the procedure. Well, it's going to make life interesting, but given her proclivities, I think that this is just going to tie RFK Jr. to the Cornel West and Marianne Williamson wing of the far left. I think this is a detriment to his campaign. Let's see. Dual Helix says, "I unfollowed RFK Jr. Philanthropist is code for never had a real job and is on the take." Well, it says that she's a lawyer, so whether or not she actually had a real job, I can't say that one because I don't know. Where did she get $4 million to donate? Probably from Google, if I had to guess. Let's see, mitochondrial respiration, WTF. She likes to say multisyllabic words to make it sound smart. Well, I don't know where she got the money from. But that's between her and Bobby now. And they can discuss that after November because, well, that campaign is toast. Alright, let's get to the show that I had planned all the way up until the bridge hit. Minus the bond getting dropped, of course, because, well, we covered that the other day. From CNN, NPC News hires former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel, who has demonized the press and refused to acknowledge Biden was fairly elected, which are both lies, by the way. Oh, Dual Helix is going to have dinner. From Oliver Darcy. NPC News on Friday announced that it had hired Ronna McDaniel, the former Republican National Committee chair, who has repeatedly attacked the network and its journalists, assailed the news media as fake news, and promoted false claims around the 2020 vote as an on-air commentator ahead of the 2024 election. By the way, this is the point of the story of how it started. Yeah, make sure you're back for Candace Owens, because that'll be coming up next. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say about that segment. It couldn't be a more important moment to have a voice like Ronna's on the team, Carrie Budoff-Brown, a senior vice president of politics at NPC News, said in a memo of staff. McDaniel exited the RNC earlier this month after leading the organization since 2016. During her time as chair, Rana repeatedly attacked the press, which has become increasingly popular in Republican circles over the last several years as Trump demonizes journalists and news organizations. Oh my God. There is so much propaganda in this. I think that we're in 1939 Germany right now. This is propaganda the likes that would make Robert Heinlein blush. This is like 1984 levels of propaganda right here. Am I missing one? Anybody? McDaniel echoed many such attacks, labeling the press as fake news and calling the media corrupt. At times, she even targeted NPC and MSDNC with dishonest attacks. In 2019, for instance, McDaniel accused Richard Engel, NPC News' chief foreign correspondent, of actively cheering for an economic downturn. Well, yeah, that's because Richard Engel was. That has no bearing on attacking NPC News as a corporation. It's because Richard Engel is a fucktard. How can NPC let him keep his job when he's made his bias so clear, McDaniel asked. McDaniel has a lengthier history of attacking progressive cable news channel, MSDNC, which she will appear on in her new role. Well, no, that's not actually the case anymore. In recent years, she's repeatedly attacked the channel for spreading lies and blasted those she described as the network's primetime propagandists. Where's the lie there? An NPC News spokesperson did not respond to requests for comments about her attacks on the news media and NPC. That's how it started. The USA Today with the other propaganda piece, nothing to be proud of. Ronna McDaniel splits with Trump on freeing January 6th rioters. We'll just touch on this one briefly. From Savannah Kuchar, former RNC chair Ronna Romney McDaniel said she disagrees with the former president's depiction of the Selfie Fest and has calls to pardon those convicted in connection with the Capitol Selfie Fest. I want to be very clear, the violence that happened on January 6th is unacceptable. It doesn't represent our country. It certainly does not represent my party, McDaniel told NPC on Sunday, adding, if you attacked our Capitol and you have been convicted, then that should stay. Trump has said that part of his day one agenda, if he's reelected to another term, would be to free those convicted of crimes tied to the Selfie Fest. Call them January 6th tourists. I call them selfie takers, but tourists would be a good word too, actually. In contrast with the former president, who was previously called January 6th a beautiful day, McDaniel said the violent attack was a dark day in our history. So, and I think some of this was her walking back to try to appease for her new job, but one of the hard parts with people who are going into the mainstream media is they forget that the internet exists, and yes, the people like Chuck Todd and others are going to come forward, and they have this stuff banked up and saved up and bookmarked and everything else. But we had some backlash for this. Sully joined us over on Instagram. I'll remind Sully, too, that there's going to be a video that pops up on the main screen in just a moment. And you're not going to be able to see that from Instagram. Alright, from The Hill, and we're just going to go over these couple briefly here. Morning Joe hosts say Ronna McDaniel won't be a guest after NPC hiring. From Sarah Fortinsky. The host of MSDNC's Morning Joe said on Monday that the former Republican National Committee chair, Rhonda Romney, NBC News' new paid contributor, will not be asked to appear on their show as a guest, pointing to her role in helping the former president's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Honk honk. Joe and Mika, in their Monday broadcast, sharply criticized the network for hiring McDaniel and called on NBC to reconsider their decision. Who couldn't have seen this one coming? To be clear, we believe NBC should seek out conservative Republican voices to provide balance to their election coverage. No, just not that one. But it should be conservative Republicans, not a person who used her position of power to be an anti-democracy election denier, Brzezinski said. Tell me you know nothing about this person without telling me you know nothing about this person. Holy shit. And we hope NBC will reconsider its decision. It goes without saying that she will not be a guest on Morning Joe in her capacity as a paid contributor, Brzezinski added. Yep. You're only allowed to hear the headlines and the opinions that we deem appropriate for you. Nothing counter at all. But the big one came from Chuck Todd. Or what is it that Rush used to say? From F. Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd rips NBC News for hiring former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel. Oliver Darcy again. Former Meet the Depressed moderator Chuck Todd delivered stunning rebuke of NBC News on Sunday, blasting the network for hiring former RNC chair Ronna Romney as a paid analyst. Todd, who serves as the network's chief political analyst, delivering his scathing criticism after McDaniel made her debut on the network during an interview with the current Meet the Depressed moderator Kristen Welker. There's a reason a lot of journalists at NBC are uncomfortable with this, Todd said. Our viewers might hear an opinion that we don't like. Explaining that under McDaniel, the RNC engaged in gaslighting and character assassination when dealing with the news media. Now, to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, "You have done that to yourself!" As RNC chair, McDaniel was a prominent election denier. Jeez. Oliver Darcy could not wait to put this article out there. Or the other one, because he wrote the other CNN article we just read, too. Worked to help disgraced former president. This is not what my opinion on this. This is what they have written in the article. She also has a long track record for demonizing the news media, including launching ugly attacks on NBC News journalists and MSDNC hosts. Well, you know what? We have video of this. Let's watch.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. Well, I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So it is, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience, Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on.
Well, after that exchange, I would say to Chuck Todd, dude, she's still not going to sleep with you no matter how much you simp, but I wouldn't be surprised if she already did. I'm not even going to say that she did. I'm just going to say I'm not going to be surprised. All right. Well, that's how it started. How it's going. Fox News to start with NPC considering cutting ties with Ronna McDaniel after intense backlash. There's active consideration at NPC News to cut ties with Ronna McDaniel after the brutal reception her hiring as an analyst has gotten, a network insider tells Fox News Digital. It has received, you morons, not gotten. Gotten is not a word. The former RNC chairwoman was signed as a paid contributor last week, leading to an immediate uproar among current and former NPC staffers, as well as media critics who consider the longtime Trump ally unacceptable for the news organization. And as of today, actually I think this was as of yesterday, NPC News to fire former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel after on-air host revolt. Ryan Saavedra over the Daily Wire. Are you guys ready to talk Candace? Because that one's coming next. The Candace Owens thing, which, by the way, I have stayed mostly out of because I can't stand Candace Owens. I'm going to check on something here because I have more chat showing up on my screen. I'm looking over at something here, and I see there is more chat. My chat's not working over on my monitor. I just realized that. Oh yeah, we're going to have to go back and catch up on a bunch of shit here. So, what you guys see on the screen, well, Sully doesn't see it on the screen because I can't transmit it to Instagram. But what you guys see on the screen over there, over to the left hand side of the news, is the live chat that's going on there. And I am supposed to be seeing that here, supposed to be on this window. But the last thing that I got on this window is from Bong telling us about the ship having no mechanical issues. The Mogwai has been going like crazy over here. And I couldn't even see it right now. Thanks, technical issues. Thank you for that. So, I'll catch up with that in just a second. Sully, by the way. Actually, I stopped on DLive because I wasn't getting any return off of it, and they had me renew. And I am on Twitch and YouTube now only, and Rumble. But Sully actually said too, let me see if I can scroll this up here quick. I gotta say, I've always admired your voice and your pronunciation of things, and can't believe you don't have a massive following yet. Your time will come. I've seen you grow and can say you've always been top notch. Thank you, and more kind words to that. I'll go back to DLive next time. This is a quickie. Yeah. No, I am on... It's just I wasn't getting any viewership over there, and like I couldn't change the title over there anymore. It was just having more technical problems than I thought it was worth to try and fix. So when when the link expired on Restream, I just didn't renew it. Even though I still have the monitor window up over there. All right. Let's check in on this one, and then we'll check in with the live chat. I apologize again, because I know you guys are a big part of the show, and you chat, hoping that I'll read it back out on air, and I have not been. Because I didn't see it all. NPC News plans to drop the ex-RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, as a paid contributor, following an on-air revolt from MSNBC talent, said Puck News reporter Dylan Byers. Execs are deliberating over the details, announcement pending. Meanwhile, McDaniel is seeking legal representation. The move comes after many MSDNC's top stars publicly attacked NPC News on their shows this week for hiring McDaniel, claiming that she was dishonest. Scarborough, we weren't asked for our opinion of hiring, but if we were, we'd have strongly objected for several reasons. Well, I'm going to tell you, in the heavy truck world, I don't get an opinion on who my company hires. There are a few people that wouldn't have made it if I had my opinion. Mika, I hope NPC will reconsider its decision. Chuck Todd, we already listened to that. Nicole Wallace. NPC News, either wittingly or unwittingly, is teaching election deniers that what they can do stretches well beyond appearing on our air in interviews to peddle lies about the sanctity and integrity of our elections. Ugh! Rachel Maddow, the fact that Mrs. McDaniel is on the payroll. On NPC News, that's inexplicable. Peppermint Patty, to quote Liz Cheney, Ronna facilitated Trump's corrupt fake elector in his effort to pressure Michigan officials to not certify the legitimate election outcomes, honk honk. She spread his lies and called January 6th legitimate political discourse. Larry O'Donnell, MSDNC, will not use Ronna McDaniel as a political analyst, but I do have a few questions for her whenever she might want to come onto this program. And I'll make it easier for her. I'll tell her the questions ahead of time. My first question would be, why did you change your name for Trump? Before Trump ran for president, her name was Ronna Romney McDaniel. How does that feel to change your name to curry favor with a madman because he doesn't like your uncle? How do you explain that to your kids? What lesson did your kids learn from that? And she is understandably seeking legal action. All right, chat time. Since none of this came up, let's put music back up too. Let's get over to this. The Rumble chat hasn't moved yet. The Mogwai says embryos are children and cousins are fuckable. Thank you, Alabama. I disavow. Mogwai says Clinton News Network. There's so much spin on this, I thought it was a news toy. Oh. He thought it was a dreidel. There's so much spin on the story, it took out a trailer park in Kansas. There's so much spin on the story, it dropped a house on some bitch's sister. Unbiased sources used. I need a new cat. Ethics at NBC, I think that rode the helicopter with Brian Williams. Chuck Todd going back to the corner to watch Rachel Maddow get railed. As a southerner, gotten is a word. Gotten is not a word. I'm setting up my Rumble tonight. Again, more for Helix. Well, I still appreciate it. I do. Bong says embryos are children and IVF is sinful in all circumstances and should be banned with no exception. Cousins should not be banging each other, though. They can't marry due to consanguinity, so no boinking allowed. I can't believe that's... Well, I guess if it kicked me out, I can believe that stopped going after this. I'm gonna... Well, let's do the major IT thing. Did you try turning it off and turning it back on again? Alright, I just reset the Restream chat. So, fill it up. YouTube and Twitch users. Fill it up. Let's talk Candace Owens. Seawall reads it in the distance. Have you tried putting in rice? Yes, it's working again now. That sucked. I wish I'd have seen that stuff live, because I know that the Mogwai can get me way off track off that kind of stuff. Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire severs ties with Candace Owens after her embrace of anti-Semitic rhetoric. From Oliver Darcy again. Oliver Darcy must just be our regular media consultant today. The Daily Wire, the far-right media outlet co-founded by known Nazi Ben Shapiro, said Friday that it severed ties with Candace Owens, the far-right commentator, who had ignited a torrent of backlash in recent months for her repeated embrace of anti-Semitic rhetoric. A reminder, this is a very, very well-known white supremacist, Candace Owens. Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship, Jeremy Boring, the chief executive of Daily Wire, said in a statement posted online. Owens confirmed the news in her own post, writing, "The rumors are true, I am finally free." Well, you didn't have to go there. I mean, that's the problem right there, is you had no reason to go there. I'm not going to lie on my position here right now. I am lukewarm at best towards Ben Shapiro, because he's such a fucking warmonger. The small hat thing doesn't bother me. It's just the warmongering. The utter warmongering. And that's been one of my two primary political positions are fiscal and anti-war. But I do like to listen to Ben when there's something legal going on there, because he does, for all of his faults, do a very good job of breaking down the legalese on things like the Biden corruption case, the Trump criminal indictments, and the civil cases. Ben does a really good job of that. I will give credit where credit is due. I have no problem doing that. Sully's going to go make dinner, check you soon, and get back with these shows. Tuesdays and Thursdays occasionally is the new. I can't do 5 days a week anymore just because I work 60 hours a week. But thank you again, and take care. Have a good night. Candace, I have never been in support of Candace Owens. Ever, ever, ever. She made her name both by being a black conservative, but also she doxed anybody who called her out and was detrimental to her. That's why I say can dox Owens. I can't stand Candace Owens. And I'll be open and honest with that. 100%. I have no problem making my positions known off of this. I do think she got the raw end of the deal off this, though. Owens, a popular commentator, notorious for promoting misinformation and conspiracy theories on a wide range of topics from vaccines to immigrants, joined the Daily Wire in 2021, which I chided at the time was a stupid decision. The outlet online stood by her over the years, despite her penchant for trafficking extremist and dishonest rhetoric. But since the October 7th Hamas terror attack on Israel, Owens has repeatedly waded into anti-Semitic waters as she fiercely criticized Israel, suggesting the Jewish government was committing genocide in Gaza, claiming there was a sinister small ring of Jewish people in Hollywood and D.C. involved in something quite sinister. In November, Shapiro, who is Jewish, called out Owens for disgraceful rhetoric, blasting her faux sophistication on the topic. Oh, hot kettle! Sorry, I had something in my throat there. Must have been just the fact I bought a pack of cigarettes. Without directly naming Shapiro, Owens responded that one cannot serve both God and money. A brazen dig at the Daily Wire co-founder that was drenched in an age-old anti-Semitic trope. Oh my God. Owens then attacked Shapiro in an interview with Tucker Carlson, the right-wing extremist who was fired last year from Fox News, accusing him of an ad hom attack. I can't read this anymore. This is legitimately making me sick. Let's go to Newsweek instead. Not that that's going to be any better. Owen says she cannot be silenced after Daily Wire exit. From Ryan Smith. No, but she'll dox and silence anybody who disagrees with her. Candace Owens has declared that she cannot be silenced following the announcement she was been fired from her role at Daily Wire. Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship, Jeremy Boring wrote in a post shared on X, formerly Twitter, Friday morning. Owens reposted the statement on her own X shortly after it was shared. A source close to Owens exclusively shared with Newsweek that the conservative commentator is set to speak out on the matter as she prepares to continue her work on a platform of her own. Candace will be speaking soon, a source told Newsweek. Anyone who knows Candace has a voice that cannot be silenced. Well, again, that doesn't mean that I have to listen. She can talk all she wants. She has the freedom of speech to do so. I don't have to tune in. It's like Jay-Z said in the 90s. You don't like my lyrics, you can press fast forward. Sharing another link in the follow-up X post, Owens wrote, "This is my personal YouTube page that'll be bringing the show back after a brief hiatus. Please take a moment to subscribe to the new channel. Love to all." The thing that got me about this was not necessarily the Candace and Ben Shapiro thing, because I couldn't give a flying fuck about either one of those. Honestly. Again, I would probably miss the legal analysis from Shapiro when I need to do research from something that is actual legalese. Like I said, the indictments, the lawsuits, the Carroll thing, things like that. That's what I listen to Ben for. And about the time that I get caught up on that stuff, I realize how much I can't stand his voice, his personality, or his warmongering, and I stop listening to him. Until the next court case comes up. And Candace, just, again, I've never cared for Candace Owens. The culture war part of this that came out of this was, number one, the controversy over the words Christ is King on X. That was the big one that came out of this, because all of a sudden everybody had to go back out and run out and say this, and I mean, for the most part, it got griped. And it got griped to a level that, well, you can hardly grasp onto, with people outright saying that saying the words Christ is King is anti-Semitic. Now, when I say that, and I say outright with disbelief, I understand that there are people out there who were explicitly using that to signal anti-Semitism. They said as much. But most of the people who were saying it were boomer cons that got into it to say basically how Christian they were. It's kind of like when, can I say the PM word from Clerks 2 on YouTube? I know that they used the movie clip on a YouTube clip, but that doesn't mean I can get away with saying it. But it's kind of, let me see if I can paraphrase around this. It's kind of like that scene in Clerks 2 where Randall decides that he's going to take the expression of a sort of simian, a sort of ape that lives on a porch. He's going to take that phrase back because he doesn't believe it should be racial in nature. That's what a lot of the Christ is King stuff was going around on X for the last few days were. But the whole thing got griped, and yeah, it's just a lot of anti-Semitism that was going along with that, for the fact that they knew that they had the audience and the attention to do so. And Fuentes got his 10 minutes in the sun again because he's always wanted to go back and try to put the Daily Wire people up on the spot, which he did in a space that was hosted by Lauren Chen. I listened to that, and I don't care for any of that, but I mean, it's ignited a major holy war on a major social media network in the holiest week of the year. And now we have Thriller in the background. So the fight continues. I am still not going to watch Candace Owens. You know what the worst part is I took the hiring of Candace Owens, because I never subscribed because I was still poor at the time. And there were other things I could be spending that money on. But when they hired Candace, that was when I stopped, looked at Daily Wire and said, fuck, I don't want to watch this anymore. These guys suck. Alright. Let's see, what do we got over here? Mogwai says, hey Darcy, CNN needs news. Go shit on stuff and send it to them to report. Wait, that doesn't have a problem with Small Hat Gang? Now midgets ringing in the distance too. Dude, everybody knows that. Whenever I run across a woman who's not my type that I'm insanely attracted to, I find out after the fact that she's Jewish. I don't know what it is either. Because I don't go seeking that. I always find out after the fact. Sometimes years after the fact. Mogwai says, I might get into trouble, but in my opinion, questioning Israel on the Hamas attacks is like pointing out the faults of Micah Brown from Ferguson. I'd rather listen to Fran Drescher singing, we didn't start the fire, than listen to Owens. Oh, you can't take the porch back, but her husband's correct, you can't taste hate. Yes, today is the day that Christ was put on the cross. And in 3 days, 4 days, because Good Friday was the day that he actually died, in 4 days we celebrate the resurrection. That was the funniest part of this. On Thursday, Owens spoke on an X after the ADL shared a link to Media Matters article. An accompanying caption read, white supremacist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes is praising Candace Owens' vitriolic anti-Semitism. It's hardly surprising, but it does set off alarm bells. When bigoted people come together to push an anti-Semitic agenda, it adds fuel to the fire of hate. Noted white supremacist Nick Fuentes took Candace Owens' side on this. We are not a serious country anymore. All right, and the last one in the media section. Tammy Sawyer. Like the coward he is, Kyle Rittenhouse stormed off stage. I'm proud of the University of Memphis students for silencing a voice that they didn't agree with, who organized resistance tonight, instead of just not going. That's not resistance, by the way. That's tyranny. As well as the Black Student Association, the U of M NAACP, alums, and faculty who spoke out. I am not proud of U of Memphis administration. So, Kyle Rittenhouse took a speaking gig from TPUSA at University of Memphis. And our free speech left shut him down. From Fox News, protesters disrupt Kyle Rittenhouse TPUSA event at the University of Memphis. No justice, no peace. Because they have the monopoly on artists and rappers and songwriters, and yet they can't write new lyrics. Outraged protesters at University of Memphis disrupted a TPUSA event featuring Rittenhouse on Wednesday night. TPUSA's college chapter at the university invited Rittenhouse to speak about the Second Amendment and self-defense, but the event spiraled into chaos when some students disrupted parts of Rittenhouse's Q&A and chased attendees leaving the campus. Video captured at the event shows. You know what? Let's see if we can have a look. I don't know how deep this is going to be into here because this is almost a week old. Well, look, it's right there. This is stuff from March 27th. But yeah, this particular person is so proud of the fact that they went down and shut down a free speech event.
Here at all. If Memphis shut them down, WKU shut them down. We don't stop here. Everybody, don't stop here.
Shut them down!
Don't stop here. Shut them down. Don't stop here. Don't stop here.
Such tolerance. So apparently they just did this in Western Kentucky too. Newsweek though, Kyle Rittenhouse message goes viral after college hostility. Well, yeah, again, the biggest problem with that, and I've pointed this out on X before, Kyle Rittenhouse would be out of the public eye and forgotten about if it wasn't for the fact that our friends on the left keep bringing him up. He'd be long gone by now. Chilling somewhere in Antioch, Illinois. Never to be heard from again. Except for the fact that they keep bringing him up over and over again. Kyle Rittenhouse's social media post urging young free thinkers to join local conservative groups has gone viral days after his appearance at the University of Memphis led to backlash from some students. Rittenhouse was invited by the college's Turning Point USA chapter, which is his first problem, to speak at the campus in March. However, the event was met with backlash from a number of students who objected to his presence. In a video posted on X, Rittenhouse can be seen abruptly exiting the stage at the University of Memphis after a group of students confronted him about controversial statements that Charlie Kirk has made about black people in the past. What racist thing has Charlie Kirk said? Rittenhouse asked before the student questioning gave a list of examples. Rittenhouse subsequently said he didn't know anything about that before refusing to comment and leaving the stage. Well, yeah, it's not his position. Now, again, I would not go and attend a Charlie Kirk event, but that's just me. But he says in a post, I want to encourage young free thinkers to join local conservative groups like TPUSA on campus, even though that's not a conservative group. Don't believe the lies from the left that make you feel alone. You're not. I've traveled to colleges all over, and trust me, conservatives are everywhere. This dude would be long gone out of the public eye if you would just let his presence die. Alright, I do want to do the Bobulinski stuff. We are apparently not going to get to the funding because, I don't know, I might do this tomorrow. We might skip Fallout Friday. I don't want to do news all week though. I want to have some fun. But it's also Good Friday, so I'll know by like noon tomorrow what I'm going to do. But I want to touch on this story before we head out of here. And I do have a very short Things I Like, Things I Hate segment. But starting with Fox News, households public hearing on Biden family influence peddling with ex-Hunter Biden associates. And that's where it started. Moving on to USA Today, lawmakers clash over Hunter Biden's inquiry on a shadow of father's presidential campaign. From Bart Jansen over at USA Today. House lawmakers squabbled for hours, hurling accusations of lying and Russian subversion, but broke no new ground about Hunter's overseas business deals at a hearing that is part of the impeachment inquiry against his father, President Biden. Hunter boycotted the Oversight Committee hearing after testifying at a closed-door deposition. So did his business associate, Devon Archer. That left 3 witnesses, each of whom had their credibility challenged, including one who served time in prison and one who testified from prison. Republicans threatened to recommend the DOJ investigate criminal charges against witnesses in the inquiry. Lawmakers accused Hunter and the president's brother James of committing perjury in their depositions. The scam is simple, said the chairman, Jim Comer. The Biden family promises they can make a foreign partner's problems go away by engaging the U.S. government. But Jamie Raskin said the hearing represented the failure of the impeachment inquiry. He said 2 GOP witnesses failed to describe any presidential wrongdoing. With any luck, today marks the end of possibly the most spectacular failure in the history of congressional investigations, the effort to find a high crime or misdemeanor committed by Joe Biden, and then impeach him for it. Raskin said, the comedy of errors comes crashing to an end. But Bob Alinsky was the one that made headlines here, including a heated exchange with the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that's the reason I wanted to make sure I got to this one. He said, where ex-Hunter Biden biz partner Tony Bobulinski says first brother James Biden lied extensively to Congress. From Josh Christensen. Tony Bobulinski told lawmakers Wednesday that the first brother James Biden lied extensively to Congress last month about the degree of Biden's involvement in the overseas business dealings. Jim Biden lied extensively throughout his transcribed interview on February 21st and perjured himself, said Bobulinski, the former Navy officer who went in with James and first son Hunter in a venture involving Chinese government-linked CEFC China Energy. Below, the post highlights some of the points of contention between the 2 former colleagues. What James said, I remember my brother had a speaking engagement at the hotel. I don't know what it was, and that we were in Los Angeles, and I was outside the hotel. I never went into the hotel with my brother. It's my recollection that my brother never came out and had any discussions, may have come out to say hi, that's it. Said hi to whom? Me. When you were at the hotel, do you recall having a meeting with Hunter and Tony Bobulinski and Joe Biden? Absolutely not. It's your testimony here that the meeting never took place, that he was present for. What Bobulinski said. The committee was so shocked by his perjury that they asked him the same question multiple times. Hunter, in his own transcribed interview, confirmed that the meeting took place. What Hunter said, we were in the lobby bar with Bobulinski having coffee, my uncle and myself. I think my uncle was also staying at the hotel, and so yeah, I know that. If you go further, it says, but I think that the reality is that he didn't anyway. My dad shook his hand with Tony. They talked about, I believe at the time, I don't know whether it was Tony's father was suffering from cancer, and his sister was suffering from cancer, and he invited him to speak at the Milken conference. So what's at issue here is the agreement to a joint venture, Sinahawk, between CEFC and Oneida Holdings, which he owned with Hunter, Rob Walker, James Gilliar, and Bobulinski. The New Republic, which is not a green check verified outlet, but I wanted to bring this up because, well, they're using this as a way to try to put down any dissent or any disagreement with the current president. The New Republic says, Republican star Hunter Biden witness has a very, very shady past. Earlier this month, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer told Lindell TV's Lou Dobbs Tonight that Bobulinski, a former business associate of Hunter, is the one solid guy that tried to do the right thing and was honest. Last Friday, Comer once again praised the businessman on Newsmax, calling him the only honest guy that appears to have been temporarily in the Biden orbit. But Bobulinski doesn't appear as squeaky clean as Comer says. Bobulinski's overt ties to Trump and his own shady dealings, as revealed in court records obtained by the New Republic, should cast doubt on the legitimacy of his closed-door testimony. But some of Bobulinski's transactions made it just before he first claimed that Biden was deeply involved in his son's international dealings, calling credibility into question, revealing a man who has chased down monetary sums of all sizes from his former business associates via legal actions. So, and they go through and they try to connect him with China and Chinese bribery and Russia and Russian government and Donald Trump himself. So they don't want you to hear this testimony. And I do urge you to go back and listen to the whole thing in its entirety. I'm about halfway through it right now myself. But Ocasio-Cortez took the show. The Hill, Ocasio-Cortez demands GOP specify actual crimes in Hunter Biden impeachment inquiry. Rebecca Beach. This is the Hill, so they're going to be praising her. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, pressured Republicans to name the specific crime they are accusing Biden of as they proceed with their impeachment inquiry. Chavez noted the recent arrest of former FBI informant for lying to the agency, fabricating the claim that Biden accepted a bribe while vice president to take actions to benefit Ukrainian energy company his son served on the board of. At this point, Poppy, the story isn't the fact that the basis of the impeachment inquiry is wrong. The story is, why is it proceeding anyway? She asked, saying Republicans have no charges. I have yet to hear the chairman's opening allegation that they're specifically charging the president with, I'm hearing about Biden family, I'm hearing about this and that, okay, Poppy? I'm not hearing the specific allegation by this committee. What is it? It is not here, okay, Poppy? And that is a problem. The story is, committee knew they were working with falsified evidence, okay, Poppy? That's the story. Which I do have yet to hear an actual statute brought forward, but there wasn't a statute in either of the Trump impeachments either. Keep that in mind. They used no state or federal statutes in either of those impeachments. You have not missed the rules. We're still going. But she came right out and said, and this, by the way, calling into question what's going on in Georgia right now. AOC Biscuit claims RICO is not a crime. And testy exchange with Biden impeachment probe witness Tony Bobulinski. That's right. Chavez was mocked online after he claimed RICO is not a crime during a heated exchange Wednesday with President Brandon's impeachment hearing witness Tony Bobulinski. Chavez, D-Twitch, asked Bobulinski, a former business associate of Hunter, whether he witnessed the president commit a crime, seeking to rebuff GOP narratives about the Biden family during the second public impeachment probe hearing. How much time do I have to go through it? Bobulinski shot back before listing several items, such as corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy, Foreign Agents Registration Act. Let's listen. And then I've got an extended clip of this as well.
Is it your testimony today that you personally witnessed President Joe Biden commit a crime?
I believe the fact that he was sitting with me while I was putting together a business
Did you
deal,
witness the president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it? What is the crime, sir?
You
specifically.
You asked me to answer the question. I answered the question.
No.
RICO, you're obviously not familiar with. Corruption statutes.
Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is
RICO is not a crime, okay, puppy?
a category. What is
It's
the
a category of crimes that you're then charged.
You
under
have charges.
A long 100.
You have charges. Sir, please
Want me to name the
name.
exact statute.
Stop fucking talking so I can answer, you dumb bitch.
Under RICO?
Yes.
Well, it's funny. In this committee room, everyone's not here. There's over 8
All right, sir. I reclaim my
lawyers that
I
went to law
reclaim my
school.
time.
I'll leave it up.
Reclaiming my time, reclaiming my time. Again, you ask the question, let him answer. Well, we have a bigger clip of this. Benny Johnson, Tony Bobulinski causes AOC to have a total meltdown after saying Joe Biden committed crimes.
Mr. Bobulinski, I heard your opening statement. It's submitted to the record, part of our proceedings. I have a quick question. Simple. Is it your testimony today that you personally witnessed President Joe Biden commit a crime?
I believe the fact that he was sitting with me while I was putting together a
Did
business
you
deal,
witness the
but-
president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it? What is the crime, sir?
You
Specifically.
wait, you asked me to answer the question. I answered the question.
No.
RICO, you're obviously not familiar with. Corruption
Excuse me,
statutes.
sir. Excuse me,
Farah.
sir. Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category. What is the
It's a category of crimes that you're then charged
You
under
have charges.
A long 100.
You
list
have
of
charges. Sir,
statutes.
please
Want me to name the exact statute
Sir,
under RICO?
yes.
Well, it's funny. In this committee room, everyone's not here. There's over 18
All right, sir. I reclaim my
lawyers
time.
that
I
went to
reclaim
law
my
school.
time. I
I'll leave
reclaim
it
my
up to
time.
you guys
Okay,
to
thank
define
you,
the
sir. I
statute
reclaim my
under
time.
RICO.
Clearly, what we are seeing here today is a continuation of the 15-month saga of the Republican majority lost in the desert. Impeachment 101. The majority party, or whomever is raising impeachment, must accuse the president of a high crime, a specific high crime or misdemeanor. I would like to submit to the record HRes 918, the House resolution to open this impeachment inquiry.
Without objection to order.
This resolution does not outline a high crime or misdemeanor. It's not here. Now, when we compare the chairman's opening from his previous opening, he's talking about Ukraine and Burisma and all of this. This entire inquiry is based on a blockbuster piece of information that was in a classified SCIF room. And inside that room was a document alleging President Biden directly of a $10 million bribery scheme. A $10 million bribery scheme. Extremely serious. What happened? What happened a month ago, Mr. Chairman? That document, the FBI arrested the person who offered those allegations for falsifying his testimony to the FBI. This entire impeachment inquiry
is real.
Based on an actual, provable individual who has lied. Now, responsible leadership would withdraw an inquiry based on that. Withdraw it. Instead, what we are seeing is that this committee was warned about the falsehoods of these allegations long before that, warned by Trump's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and yet they proceeded anyway. The chairman proceeded anyway. This committee was warned by Rudy Giuliani associate right here, Lev Parnas, after that document about the falsehoods of this. Then held hearings where your own expert witnesses said that there was no grounds for impeachment, and you proceeded anyway. And finally, as if none of this was enough, the FBI arrested the individual who was the source of the entire, to quote the chairman, heart of the matter, to launch this impeachment inquiry, and proceeded anyway. At this...
I love how they bring up who these people work for, like Giuliani associate, Trump Secretary of State, etc. Like, that actually makes their testimony worthwhile. Oh, well, he worked for Trump or he worked for Giuliani and he is turning on them, so that must mean that it's right. It's confirmation bias, and forgive me, but if the FBI is arresting the FBI who's run by the person who's under investigation is arresting a key witness, that raises questions for me. So, I wonder how much she got paid by whatever firm hired her to do this. But it's also hilarious to me that she comes right out and says RICO is not a crime, while the former president is facing charges of RICO and pretty much nothing else on the state level in Georgia, under basically the auspices of Fani Willis wants everybody who's associated with him to think that he's going to prison for the rest of their life and flip. Alright, well, that was fun. Alright, let's head out of here. I have got 2 tabs left open. Oh, one last one before we go off of this. Biden has formally been invited to testify for his impeachment inquiry. He's probably not going to. I'm not going to read the article, but he's probably not going to. But he has been invited to do so. And if he does, we'll watch the video of it. And I'm sure somebody will come out and say something like, well, if he has nothing to hide, then this and that and the next thing. Alright. Let's do some things that I like and some things that I hate, but first, we will check back in on the rules of acquisition, because it's been specifically requested at this point. Let's see, where did we leave off? So we left off at the 288th rule of acquisition. A reminder, the rules of acquisition are the cornerstone of the Ferengi religion, the fictitious race in Star Trek, who is known for being ultra-capitalist to the point that it affects how they view their afterlife. The people who hold on to these rules, the tightest, will get to use the social credit they get from these rules and bid on a better life in the divine treasury. Every episode of Contemporary, we go through one of these rules, figure out how it can be used in real life, how it was used in the show, and what it means. The 289th rule of acquisition, a man is only worth the sum of his possessions. This, of course, being in the ultra-capitalistic side of things, this is, essentially the boomer statement of he who dies with the most toys wins. To put a simplistic point on it, in a situation where you are judged by how well you conduct capitalism among other species of the galaxy and among other people of your own race, it's only logical that this comes to this. Now, this goes directly against the teachings of Christ, of course, where Paul even said to sell everything that you own and get rid of anything that makes you forces you to sin. Well, it's an interesting way to look at it, especially when we look into the way that these things are viewed in the framework of the Star Trek galaxy. This is not one that I think can be really used and applied to our daily lives. Of course, you should make sure that there is a roof over your head, that you have food in your belly, and you should be seeking out to better yourself as you go. But I've never been a proponent of the he who dies with the most toys win. I am honestly, in spite of the fact that my couch is a mess right now, I'm surprisingly Spartan myself. I don't keep a lot of decorations or a lot of trinkets around. I have a few. But I don't keep much of that stuff around. Everything that I have has a purpose. Whether it's entertainment, like to have the TV up there or something, or a video game system, or the computer I use to stream. Everything that I have has a purpose. I've got like my Red Sox baseball that I have on my nightstand. That's one of the few decorations that I keep around. So I am not one to come back in and say he who dies with the most toys wins. All right, let's do some things that I like and some things that I hate. I actually didn't put the movie recommendation or the TV recommendation up this week, and I don't know why I didn't get it up there, but we can probably get this video up here pretty quick. So when we talked last week, I pointed out that I had watched The Hunger Games, and I was absolutely terrified by it. For a good reason, obviously. I had not watched The Hunger Games since before I got politically active. Let's say that. I looked at that from the lens of a rebellion and nothing else. Realizing now the fact that, I mean, we're in a situation where if the progressive agenda continues down the road that they go, they do want to cordon off and punish all the dissenters. Not just the MAGA people anymore, it's all the Republicans, including people like Ronna McDaniel, who is not MAGA. Or people like me, who are anti-government, or anything else that stands in the way of their agenda. And what I said on X before, and I probably ruffled, I'm algorithmically demoted on X, so not a lot of people saw it, but honestly, when I look at the situation in the Hunger Games, the capital would be, I think, the neocon, neoliberal coalition, the Lieberman wing of the party, the Biden wing of the party, the Haley wing, the Bush people, the people like that. That's going to be the capital coming off of this. And the progressives and the MAGA people would be lumped together because they're both revolutionaries. For different reasons, of course, but they would be the people out in the district. But the thing that bothered me, is that the MAGA out there would be the people who followed President Coyne, who was introduced in the trailer that we're going to watch in just a moment here. President Coyne, the president of the rebellion, who, upon having the president of the Capitol arrested, came out and said, oh, well, we don't have to have elections anymore. I'm going to be the right one. I'll be the one that runs this, and I'll run it until we feel that we're ready to have elections. And was honestly just as tyrannical as President Snow was. So I watched Catching Fire, which we're going to watch that trailer in just a moment. I watched both the Mockingjays. I still haven't seen the prequel one, although I'm a little bit more interested in it now that I'm A, politically active, and B, have seen the movies now recently again. But let's watch the trailer for Catching Fire, which kicked the revolution into gear. Let's bring this over to this screen.
You understand that whatever I do, it comes back to you and Mom. I don't want you to get hurt.
Since the last games, something's different. You can see it.
What can you see?
Hope.
You saved us. I know that. But I can't go on acting for the cameras and then just ignoring each other in real life.
She's not who they think she is. And she has to be eliminated.
I agree, but in the right way, at the right time.
We have to go before they kill us. They will kill us.
People want to fight. I'm staying here.
They fought very hard in the games, Miss Everdeen. But they were games. Would you like to be in a real war? Imagine thousands of your people dead. Your loved ones gone.
What do I need to do?
This is the 75th year of the Hunger Games. The tributes are to be reaped from the existing pool of victors.
I get to say goodbye.
So what do we do? I think these games are going to be different.
The 75th Hunger Games!
Ready to work?
There she is, KTZed, the girl on fire!
I want you guys to forget everything you think you know about the games. Last year was child's play. This year, you're dealing with all experienced killers.
Your last advice?
Stay alive.
Remember who the real enemy is.
I felt that there were a few inconsistencies in the way that the movies were laid out for Catching Fire, especially when they did the quarter quell, which was supposed to be the winners from every district, but I mean, the people were supposed to be also picked from a pool of everyone who was age 12 to 18, which meant that some of these people had the potential to be 36 by the time, because they had to pull 24 people, 23, 35 coming into this. Because remember, Katniss and Peeta both won, and they were both in the running from District 12. But yeah, if you haven't seen these movies, or if you haven't watched them for a while, like since you've become politically active, I recommend going and giving them another look. It's fantastic, it's scary, it's really real too. Like, especially, and I don't want to give spoilers away, especially if you haven't seen it, but just the way that they brought the ending out is a chilling reminder of how futile war is, and how no matter what your intentions are, they've come back to home. So the Hunger Games trilogy, that was the second movie, Catching Fire, we watched the trailer for. I'm maybe next contemporary we'll watch the Mockingjay ones, even though it'll have been a week since I watched them. But let's do a couple more things that I like here. Ron DeSantis. Almost everything that I have other than this is from X, by the way, unfortunately. Ron DeSantis. So, one of the big things in the news, and I haven't covered very much lately, is the fact that squatting is coming into view. Now, what Ron DeSantis did, and I still point out the fact that with Ron DeSantis, he has power in his state because of the way the Florida Constitution is laid out, that as president, he wouldn't have the power to do, particularly on a national level, because of the way that federalism works and because of the way the congressional delegation works. And this is something that I had a criticism for him, even all the way back to when he first threw his hat into the ring and I was first analyzing his candidacy. But he decided that he's going to use the power that he does have by the Florida Constitution to do something about squatting. Reading from his X account, commandeering a private residence through squatting is a scam that violates private property rights. True, by the way. Absolutely true. While some states are choosing to indulge into this behavior, Florida is putting an end to it. Stay tuned. Let's listen to what Florida Man has to say.
Does your house belong to you? Or if you are not using it, can someone just come in, squat for a period of time, and then claim that they have a right to be there? This so-called squatter scam is something that's happening around the country. There's even videos telling people how to go in and take over an empty house. That was never how the law was supposed to work. And in Florida, we are going to take action today to end this scam and to protect the private property rights of our homeowners. You should not have anyone go on your property and take it over and then try to assert some rights. It's absurd. We're going to put an end to it today, and we'll be leading the way yet again in the process. Does your house belong to you?
Absolute win, and everything that he said here is correct. That's not the way the law was intended to work. That's not what it was intended to do. And it's a scam, especially with people going onto Reddit and figuring out how to convince other people to do that. Again, though, with what I pointed out here, there are provisions in California's, I'm sorry, not California. Brew, you threw me off for a second. There are provisions in Florida's Constitution that let Ron DeSantis or any other governor going forward take a sweeping step across the entire jurisdiction that are not permitted to the executive branch. There's so many people out here that are saying, this could have been our president. This is the person who could have been our standard bearer for the Republican Party. To do what? Be neutered by the Constitution and not be able to do this? That's still a states' rights issue. But it's a tremendous one for Florida. Do not get me wrong. And you should be pressuring your local officials, especially if they have the constitutional provisions, like Ron DeSantis has, to do this in your state. Like he said, you own your house. Somebody coming in and sitting there on vacant property forever does not get to have rights to your house just by doing improvements of it. And other things. Actually, I think that's it. Is that all the things that I like? Huh, yeah, that is all the things I like. Let's move on to some things that I hate. I promise I totally prepared for this. Mayor Pete, our transportation secretary, deciding to make overpasses racist. Yeah, that's right. Overpasses are now racist. Paul Cibula says Pete Buttigieg says that underpasses, which were designed too low, obviously reflect racism. This is an argument that's been going on longer than I've been alive because of redlining and the way they put highways through and everything else. I'm telling you, especially when we're doing this in the interstate system in the 70s, they were not trying to keep the black people out of neighborhoods. It was still, let's say there were still undesirables that they wanted to keep on one side or the other, but it was Irish and Italians at the time, not black people. Let's listen.
If an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices. I don't think we have anything to lose by confronting that simple reality, and I think we have everything to gain by acknowledging it and then dealing with it, which is why the Reconnecting Communities, that $1 billion, is something we want to get to work right away. If an underpass was...
No, what it is you want to go back and make bridges to nowhere and tear down existing roads and reconstruct them because that makes artificially inflated jobs. Thank you, Mayor Pete, for that. A brief one, a headline that actually showed up on the New York Times. Benny Johnson Xing out. The New York Times this morning. It turns out the deep state is actually kind of awesome. You knew it was going to come, by the way. You knew that was going to happen because, well, it's the deep state, and that means that they're against Trump. He's been railing against them. That means that he must be against him. You know, instead of, for the last 3.5 years, hearing, oh, what is he even talking about? The deep state doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Well, now it exists, and we like it because Orange Man bad. This one just pissed me off to no end. K-12 school shooting database. For those of you listening on the audio platform or on Instagram where you can't see the screen behind me, on the screen is a picture of a replica Glock, airsoft, I believe, CO2 powered. And it does have a prominent marker up on what would have been the slide if it was an actual firearm. But it's replica Glock. It looks just like a Glock, and it does have a big indicator that says, hey, this is a toy. But this is an argument against the armed teachers. It says, when a student pulls this out inside a school, how does an armed teacher know that it's, quote, just a toy? Massachusetts student was arrested yesterday with this replica Glock BB pistol after threatening other students in the school bathroom. Okay, here's my question for you. How does the resource officer know that that's just a toy? How does the police officer that comes in from a municipality know that that's just a toy? How does the sheriff's deputy that responds into the midst of this know that's just a toy? Why is this an exclusive argument just for the, quote, armed teacher? And again, I remind you that my position on this is not that the state should be arming teachers. It's that people who already have a concealed carry permit should be allowed to take further licensing if they are working in the educational field to carry their concealed with them while they are there. Because they are already comfortable with it, they're already willing to do so, and they've already passed a lot of the background checks that would be necessary otherwise. Trust me, some activist teacher who would otherwise, again, be armed by the state would turn around and show the gun out to the students and say, hey, we could really make a name for ourselves here if one of you just happens to steal this and go on a rampage. We could end the gun argument forever. But my big question, again, is what's the difference? I'm going to hold on to the rest of this. It's 8:30. I got to work in the morning. I got to do some more stuff. We're going to call it here. This is going to be the last one. What happens tomorrow is still up in the air right now. But there's no reason you have to be looking at a toy gun to hear that either. So, as of right now, we've still got... What do we have left? 2 more windows full of tabs. One's foreign news and one is on the budget. And then I got a couple more things that I hate, and I could probably find a couple of things that I like as well. We've probably got a good hour's worth of content left. I might do this tomorrow. Because as I said before, I will be in transit on Saturday. KTZed will be streaming at the same time, and I will be in transit. So we are not going to do contemporary on Saturday. That's just not going to happen. If this was not Easter weekend, it would be a different story, and I would say yes. I would love to come back out and share with you guys and enjoy my time on Saturday with you, because I liked it the last time we did it, and we did bring out a pretty decent crowd last Saturday. But it's Holy Week. I want you guys out there with your families, spending time with your families. So tentatively right now the plan is to do this tomorrow, but I still want to wind down and play Fallout, you guys. I don't know. I'll figure out what I'm going to do. I'll sleep on it. We'll figure it out. The announcement will be in the Discord and on X. So we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. For now, let's throw some outro music up. And let's head out of here. Whew. Well, we got a lot done. 2.5 hours again. That's been average, I think, for contemporary lately. I used to call it exactly at 2 hours, but I used to call it exactly an hour and a half, but I did it daily at that time too, so keep that in mind. But we'll be back here. Alright, I'm not going to say when we're going to be back here because I still have to go back and figure it out. But we will be back here for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Stand by for when the next show is going to be. Thanks to everybody who came by and chatted and hung out tonight. The Instagram was blowing up tonight, you guys. Thank you to Hello Brutiful, who I hosted with for a good while over on her show, and Sully Blue and Luke, who joined us all over there. The Mogwai and Yujin Bong for joining us over on the Twitch side, and Dual Helix keeping things going on the Rumble side. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Like I said, the more you guys chat, the more we get moved up to the front page, so I always appreciate that. And do carry that forward to whoever else you watch on live stream and support, because the more stuff shows up in their live chats, the better off they're going to do with the algorithm. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your company. Enjoy your families. If I don't see you tomorrow, enjoy your families this weekend. Absolutely. I want to make sure you guys do that. Go eat some eggs and some ham. Maybe not green eggs and ham, but if that's your thing, go do that as well. Take care. Have a wonderful night. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.